Welcome to Hollywood Insiders. Today, we take a deep dive into the 1982 classic that redefined the action genre. First Blood. Did you know Sylvester Stallone hated the first cut so much he tried to buy and destroy the film? In this spotlight, we explore the origins, how an apple inspired the name, Rambo and the real-life war hero behind the character, behind the scenes, the grueling production in Hope, British Columbia, and the injuries Stallone suffered, including broken ribs from a 70-foot cliff jump. The casting What-Ifs. From Al Pacino to Dustin Hoffman, who else almost wore the headband. The ending that changed everything, why test audiences rejected the original. Suicidal endings, leading to one of cinema's biggest franchises. Sylvester Stallone accidentally broke Alf Humphrey's nose during First Blood jailbreak scene. When the First Blood team was shooting the prison escape scene, Sylvester Stallone accidentally broke Alf Humphrey's nose by elbowing him in the face. This is why Humphrey's character, Lester, can be seen wearing a band-aid in the rest of his scenes. Funnily enough, in David Morrell's source novel, Rambo breaks a police officer's nose by elbowing him in the face in this exact same scene. So was it a coincidence? Or was it just a case of the actors taking their roles to the extreme? Dolph Lundgren was initially cast as the villain in First Blood Part 2. The role of Russian Lieutenant Colonel Sergei Podovsky, the only villain in Rambo, First Blood Part 2 with any lines in English, was originally offered to Dolph Lundgren. Lundgren even accepted the part and signed the contract. However, when Sylvester Stallone realized, he cast the same actor to play the villains in both the second Rambo film and Rocky, for which was due to be released the same year. He decided to buy out his contract and cast Steven Berkoff instead. John Rambo's horse also played Indiana Jones' horse. Sylvester Stallone is one of the few actors who can claim to be able to ride a horse on their resume and actually be telling the truth. He's been riding horses since he was a kid and started playing polo competitively at the age of 11. So to say that he has a bit of experience riding is somewhat of an understatement. The horse that John Rambo rode in 1988. Rambo 3 also appeared as Indiana Jones' horse 1 year later in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Stallone was originally going to carry the M2.50 cal machine gun in the fourth movie. In the final sequence of Rambo, the title character uses an M250 cal heavy machine gun to tear the bad guys to pieces. In the movie, the gun is mounted on the back of a Jeep. But originally, Sylvester Stallone was going to carry it in his hands. Despite the gun weighing 120 pounds, the superhuman Stallone was still able to hold it and fire it. However, he couldn't move it quick enough. Some critics called the gore inflicted by the M too unrealistic, but war veterans who used the gun in Iraq and Afghanistan said that the violence was, in fact, realistic, and if anything, it was toned down from the real thing. Last Blood originally opened during a storm. In the original cut of Rambo, Last Blood, the movie opened during a storm in which Rambo managed to save a little girl, but failed to save a couple more people. Then he would have gone back home and talked about how it made him feel before retreating into his tunnels to sleep. However, this was cut from the final film because younger test audiences didn't connect with it. Stallone was happy to make the cut, as he felt that opening with Rambo working on the ranch would get into the main plot quicker. Before Sylvester Stallone landed the role in 1982, First Blood spent a decade in development hell, with nearly every major leading man of the 1970s Considered for the part of John Rambo, aside from Al Pacino and Dustin Hoffman, other actors considered or offered the role included the Legends list: Clint Eastwood, often considered during the early Warner Brothers development phase, but turned it down due to other commitments. Steve McQueen expressed interest early on, but directors eventually deemed him too old to convincingly play a Vietnam veteran by the time production neared. Paul Newman, considered by director Martin Ritt, though Newman ultimately declined. Robert De Niro, a top choice for several early versions of the script. Other major contenders: John Travolta, briefly considered when director John Badham was attached to the project. James Garner, a real-life Korean war veteran who turned it down because he felt the character's violent reaction toward police poorly represented veterans. Chris Christopherson. Some producers felt his real-world military background as an airborne ranger made him a natural fit. Michael Douglas and Nick Nolte. Both were considered by director John Frankenheimer, but ultimately rejected the part. Brad Davis, actually cast at one point by John Frankenheimer. Before that production attempt stalled, Ryan O'Neal, Robert Redford, and Burt Reynolds all were considered or offered the role at various stages of development. Trivia fact: Thomas Millian technically played a character named Rambo 7 years before Stallone. In the 1975 Italian film syndicate Sadists, also known as Rambo's Revenge, after being fascinated by the original novel, many actors turned down the role of John Rambo in First Blood for a variety of reasons, including script issues, scheduling conflicts, the character's controversial nature, and an aging issue. Reasons actors declined the role: script and tone. The original novel and early scripts portrayed Rambo as a violent, immoral killer. Many actors felt the character was too dark and violent, or that playing an aggressive character who fought with American police would be career-ending. It was only after Sylvester Stallone was cast that he rewrote the script to make Rambo a more sympathetic, victimized veteran who primarily acted in self-defense, and gave him a happier ending. Aged out, the project spent a decade in development hell, and many of the top choices for the role in the early 1970s, such as Steve McQueen, were considered too old to realistically play a young Vietnam veteran by the time the film was ready for production. Creative differences: Al Pacino reportedly turned it down because he wanted Rambo to be eccentric or a lunatic, and the producers dismissed that idea. James Garner, a decorated Korean War veteran, declined the role because he felt the character represented veterans poorly in the early script versions. Scheduling and availability: Clint Eastwood was considered but was too busy with other film commitments at the time. Paul Newman also declined for unspecified reasons, as did Robert Redford, Burt Reynolds, and Michael Douglas. General uncertainty due to the film's long, troubled development with many different directors and studios attached over the years. Many actors found it difficult to stay committed to the project. Sylvester Stallone's rewrite significantly softened the character from David Morrell's 1970 to novel, shifting Rambo from a mindless ending machine to a victimized veteran searching for purpose. In the original novel, Rambo kills dozens of police officers and civilians. Stallone rewrote the script so that Rambo does not directly kill anyone. The only death in the film is an accidental fall by a deputy, changing the motivations. Stallone added the emotional detail that Rambo was visiting the last surviving member of his unit, only to find he died from Agent Orange. This established Rambo as a lonely survivor rather than just a drifter. A heroic survival, the book and original scripts ended with Rambo's death. Stallone insisted Rambo survive, arguing that after the character's suffering, killing him would send a hopeless message to real-life veterans. Vulnerability over violence. Stallone rewrote dialogue to emphasize Rambo's pain and isolation. The famous breakdown at the end of the film, where Rambo weeps about his trauma and the loss of his friends, was a Stallone addition to give the character heart. Adding the signature knife, Stallone added the survival knife to the script to emphasize Rambo's survivalist skills rather than offensive weaponry. First Blood, Rambo breaks down. An amazing speech portraying Vietnam, vet syndrome PTSD, and what it did to its soldiers. Rambo is such a misunderstood masterpiece. People hear the name and think of the sequels where it's basically like Iron Eagle or 100 other mindless action movies, but First Blood was nothing like those. It was, if anything, the complete opposite of all the Rambo movies that came after it. It's sad, the number of people I've recommended watch it who think I'm just kidding because they don't know what the first film was actually about. First Blood definitely gets overlooked due to the body count action sequels that followed. First Blood was a dramatic thriller rather than an action movie. It's interesting to see how different the character is from the character in the novel. Stallone and the producers made some interesting changes to make the character more sympathetic, and they all worked well. Too bad the sequels changed the way people view this very strong film. The original Rambo, a drama on PTSD. First Blood as a PTSD drama. The initial Rambo film, First Blood, is frequently cited as a powerful depiction of PTSD, a significant departure from the action hero image of the sequels. Technically speaking, though, First Blood was the movie that tackled PTSD. Rambo's emotional breakdown, Stallone's performance, Sylvester Stallone's portrayal of Rambo's PTSD and mental health struggles in First Blood is highly praised. I know a lot of people make fun of the way Stallone talks sometimes in his films, but the way he's screaming and rambling with the slurred speech absolutely nails PTSD and the horror he's seen are movies. From broken veteran to action hero, the sequels, starting with Rambo, First Blood Part 2, transformed Rambo into an unstoppable machine, a stark contrast to his original portrayal. The transformation of Rambo from broken veteran to unstoppable machine is a real cultural loss. The shift in Rambo's character contributed to a different cultural perception of him. My first exposure to the character of John Rambo was him being an unstoppable killing machine. This was entirely due to pop cultural osmosis. Disappointment with the sequels for betraying the original message of First Blood. While the sequels can be enjoyed for pure action schlock, they kind of betrayed the message of the first film. Special Forces background. Rambo's background as a Special Forces operator is often discussed in the context of his PTSD. The theme of veterans being rejected by society after the Vietnam War is a central element in First Blood. I think you mean First Blood, a legitimate drama story with action about a troubled veteran suffering PTSD in a society that no longer accepts him. The first Rambo movie, First Blood, is often highlighted for its dramatic and psychological depth, focusing on PTSD and the struggles of a returning veteran. The sequels, however, are seen as a departure into more straightforward action territory. The sequels helped solidify Rambo's image as an unstoppable killing machine, a stark contrast to the nuanced character in the first film. The sequels built a reputation for the Rambo movies. Even people who had never seen any of them have at least heard of them. And when they hear the name Rambo, they form an image in their minds of a sweaty, shirtless guy with a bandana around his head shooting people in a jungle. Vietnam War revisionism, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, is particularly noted for its jingoistic and revisionist take on the Vietnam War. Then the second film. We got a neck-shattering 180 into full on Ronald Reagan revisionism of the war in Vietnam. Rambo to perpetuate several popular and resilient myths about the Vietnam War, such as that Americans' POWs were still there after the war, and the war would have been won by Americans of only we, the American people, had allowed them to win. The sequels often reflected the geopolitical climate of their time, such as Rambo 3's portrayal of the Soviet-Afghan War. I haven't seen it since it came to VHS, but I believe that in Rambo 3, Rambo helps basically Al-Qaeda fight the commies. While some fans enjoyed the action-packed nature of the sequels, others found them to be cheesy and less engaging than the original. The knock on this movie is that it's just an action flick, a macho 80s movie, best suited for eating popcorn and feeling all rough and tumble. Stallone's performance, Sylvester Stallone's portrayal of Rambo, especially in the first film, is often praised for its emotional depth. I know a lot of people make fun of the way Stallone talks sometimes in his films, but the way he's screaming and rambling with the slurred speech absolutely nails PTSD and the horror he's seen. The first film is really on another level from the sequels. For this scene in particular, up until this point, Rambo has uttered less than 10 or so lines. In the end, however, it turns out Rambo actually has a lot to say, and out it comes in one painful stream of consciousness rant. That's going to end this spotlight on the movie Rambo. Once again, we thank you for turning into each and every episode. Please support the podcast by subscribing, watching, and liking. Thank you for watching.